Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. So one of my favorite speeches of Shakespeare's that I have ever read, and I've read quite a few, is Henry V's St. Crispin's Day speech. Now seemed like the perfect time to talk about it, unpack that amazing speech, because October 25th is St. Crispin's Day. I found that out several years ago and I was so excited. I share this speech with my class every year around this time, and so here are some of the things that I have found. But stay tuned to the end of the video. I'll give you a few clips from excellent versions of this speech from, different actors and stuff. So here we go. So here's the beginning of the St. Crispin's Day speech in Henry V. It's an act 4, scene 3. So toward the end, as everything's kind of wrapping up. So there's a little bit of an intro here, but really the speech begins, "If we are marked to die." So that is where I'm going to begin as well. By the way, this copy of the book, I realized I didn't have a nice, small, basic copy. Instead, I had this entire volume of all of Shakespeare's histories, and I found some notes from my late friend Jamie in this book, and so it was just a beautiful gem on a personal level. Jamie's the person I dedicated one of my books to. Anyway, so if we are marked to die, we are enough to do our country loss, and if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honor. This is almost like Henry V's thesis statement here. The setup is that they're about to fight the Battle of Agincourt, and the English are going up against a far superior, far greater French force. Everybody's outnumbered 10-1, and it looks hopeless for them, but Henry V, who was Hal or Harry in the Henry IV duology, still needs to prove himself as king. He is newly crowned, he's still pretty young, and this is kind of the moment when the rubber meets the road. Can he inspire his people in the face of such overwhelming odds? So that's why it begins, "If we are marked to die," because it seems like that is the likeliest scenario that they'll encounter there on the field. We are enough to do our country loss. So they have enough of a force there to for the country to feel the loss of them. And if to live, so those are the two options, right? Live or not. To be or not to be, I guess. And if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honor. So this is a huge idea. Honor is incredibly important in this entire speech. So if the fewer men there are who go up against this superior force, the fewer who survive to tell the tale, it's almost like there's a finite amount of honor that they get to distribute amongst themselves, almost like pieces of a pie. And so for the king, having that honor is I guess, an honor. "God's will, I pray thee, wish not one man more." So right before this, people are saying all these people in England that could have been here to help us, and yet they're not. And the king says, no, we don't need any more people, because we can have more honor the fewer people that there are. By Jove. So he has these kind of light oaths throughout. Maybe they're a relic of his wilder childhood or something like that. He kind of throws in these they're not really curses or anything, but just light oaths. By Jove, he says, "I am not covetous for gold, so I don't long for gold that isn't mine. Nor care I who doth feed upon my cost." I don't care who I pay for, if I can afford to feed people, I don't care. "It yearns me not if men my garments wear. Such outward things dwell not in my desires. But if it be a sin to covet honor, I am the most offending soul alive." Okay, so here he's bringing everything back to that honor. The fewer men, the greater share of honor. He says, if it be a sin to covet honor, that word covet is a word that's used in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not covet. So, really be jealous for something that is not yours. But he says, yeah, I definitely covet honor that is not yet mine. And if that's a sin, I am the most offending soul alive. So he's putting himself in this kind of almost self-deprecating light, but it's almost like when somebody in a job interview asks you, what's your greatest weakness? And you're like, I work too hard. It's that kind of self-deprecation where it's sort of false and making the opposite point. No, faith, my cuz was just a general term for anybody that you were close to, not literally a cousin necessarily. Claudius calls his nephew Hamlet cuz in the beginning of Hamlet, and obviously they are lots of things, but they're not cousins. No, faith, my cuz. Wish not a man from England. God's peace, I would not lose so great an honor as one man more, methinks, would share from me for the best hope I have. Oh, do not wish one more. I mean, he's making this point really strongly. He's saying that he himself would rather that there be fewer people there rather than more, just because it's so incredible the honor that they'll get if they still manage this victory. This is, of course, an older mindset, a warrior mindset, but it was very much in place for the likes of Henry V here. This speech, by the way, is adapted from a speech that existed in some of the source material that Shakespeare used. There's no such thing as copyright at the time, and if you compare the two, you can easily find the other one in the historical, kind of semi-historical document that Shakespeare referred to. But Shakespeare's is vastly superior just in the beauty and effectiveness of its language, but he does take a few phrases here and there. Okay, so ignore the travel book over here. I needed something heavy to hold this down so you can see it all, hopefully nice and crisply. Look, it keeps going blurry. Oh well. All right, rather proclaim it, Westmoreland, through my host, that he which hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for convoy put into his purse. So Henry V here goes one step further. He says not only should we not wish for any additional people from England, but if anybody is too afraid to fight, then you feel free to go. This accomplishes several things. So it shows grace to those who are actually fearful, and he does not call them cowards. Here he says, if you have no stomach to this fight, we'll give you some crowns for convoy. So a crown is a type of money. We'll give you enough money to get home. But it also connects the people who stay in a much more intense way, because now everyone has made that decision. Again, they've recommitted themselves to these people, to this cause, and it just glues everybody together. It's kind of brilliant reverse psychology by saying that people can leave, because who's going to take advantage of that now when there's all this honor on the table that even the king covets, and you yourself, not a noble necessarily, can also have if you stay and fight alongside him. So we would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. So there's a hint of, I guess, coward shaming there. We would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. But once again, it's bringing the existing people much closer together. This day, he says, is called the Feast of Crispin. Again, that's October 25th if you want to, watch Henry V or do something fun like that. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand tiptoe when this day is named and rouse him at the name of Crispin. So now that everyone's kind of recommitted themselves, now that everybody has access to the thing that the very king covets, he one, assumes that people will make it home out of this fight, and two, gives this moment historical significance. He makes the anniversary of it this holiday when people will be remembered and honored, and when people can be proud to reflect back on this decision that they've made. So many angles that the king is taking here. It's just unparalleled as far as, war speeches go, in my opinion. All right, so rouse him at the name of Crispin. He that shall see this day and live old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. So the king is acknowledging that not everyone will outlive this day and come safe home. Not everyone will make it to old age. Even if they do, they're going to have these gnarly scars from this battle. And yet he's making that this badge of honor, this point of pride. Like, look, we're all going to have this badge of that only the people who are here can match, right? So everyone's going to gather together, and it'll be this community event, this holiday almost, and you will be the one who can brag about your impressive exploits, and you'll have all the honor. Old men forget, he goes on, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages, it's going out of focus, what feats he did that day. So he said, whoever lives to be, lives to experience old age will be able to brag every year on the feast of St. Crispin. But then he says, okay, everyone will eventually be, things will eventually be forgotten, sure. All will be forgotten, but whoever survives will remember with advantages what feats he did that day. This will make the short list of things that even as an old man he will be able to remember and reflect on about his life with, again, some pride. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. So just like he knows the name for, cup and spoon, he is going to know the names of Bedford and Exeter and some of these other people, all of whom are characters in this story. So the king is now addressing some of his audience members directly and saying, look, I am lumped in here with you. Harry the King, that's him. And he even uses the less formal, it's not Henry V, it's Harry the King. He's a man of the people, and he will be remembered just as clearly as all these other individuals who are there as well. So he is pumping up these men. This story, he goes on, shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. Sometimes people say remembered, sometimes people say remembered, but that little accent thing means that you should say the last two sounds by themselves. The more important thing, of course, is what he says here. So yes, of course, everything will eventually be forgotten. You will remember this until you die of old age, hopefully. And then he goes a step further and says, and this story will not die with you when you go home and you become this old man. Instead, this is a story that people will pass down through the generations. They'll teach their children about, overcoming the odds and the courage that it took to do what you're about to attempt here. It's, again, a brilliant strategy. So not only will you remember, but this holiday, this St. Crispin's Day, will be forever associated with you and your impressive feats, and so there really will be no forgetting of the things that you do, because the story will live on. And here we are in 2023 talking about this story, so maybe he had something there. All right, here is the most famous section, and it's just, there's a reason for it. It's so beautiful. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. Let's just pause there for a second. We have this repetition, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers. We happy few, we are so lucky to be here, he's saying. We are brothers. I'm the king, yes, the King of England, but we are brothers in this moment. So yes, obviously this line has been used for, for miniseries and quotations and all kinds of things like that. But there's a reason. It's just so powerful. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Again, that promise that you can stand alongside the king with no inferiority, with no shame, with no, just on equal footing almost. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. This was actually the section that confused me for a lot of years until I looked into this set of lines. So, be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. So, gentle his condition here means two things from what I understand. One, he will, even if you're vile now, you'll become a better person after this, kind of in a general sense. But in a more concrete sense, to have a condition gentled is to become a gentleman, or to basically have an improvement in your stature, to become a noble, to have a title conferred on you, that kind of thing. And so you'll earn an upgrade in that hierarchy if you do this. And gentlemen in England, now abed, who, remember, they were bemoaning, weren't there. Gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day. Everyone will wish that they were here with us. They'll think that they just are not man enough, I guess. You have this very, traditional view of masculinity and warrior ethics and all of that. But I think the beauty of the language and the inspirational nature of it absolutely still holds. This is so inspiring to a group of people who are probably going to be unalived, as the people say, on this battlefield. And yet they get so excited after this, they're ready to run into the fray. So what ends up happening after this impressive speech is that the battle does happen. There are a lot of casualties, yes, but they actually win this battle against the odds, and it's this truly beautiful, in terms of the story, this beautiful turn of events that they had the ability to do the impossible because they were inspired by their king. All right, whatever you think about the actual Battle of Agincourt, this speech is undeniably really beautiful, really inspiring. It's one that I have memorized off and on over the years, and no matter how I've done it, it has not come across as beautifully as some of these.
He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin.
We few, we happy few, we band of brothers.
For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother.
And gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here.
And hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks.
And hold with us upon St. Crispin's Day!
So there you have it. Like this video if you like it. Make sure to subscribe for more English nerdy goodness, and happy St. Crispin's Day. Have a feast, hang out with some people with scars, tell your stories, and surround yourself with people you love. All right, see you next week. Bye.